So it just like occurred to me that like one of the things, the ways in which human beings deal with grief is they, create new grief for themselves. So like, for me, when I was younger, I was sort of, living at home, not happy, working at a shitty job that I didn't enjoy. And, someone came along and they sort of like, convinced me of, the bright future, that we could have together, and, that I could be making a lot of money working for them. And so, at the time I was, in my early 20s, so I was very naive. And so I went along with, for a little ride, All right, so, where was I?
You're
Shut. Okay. I must compose myself. Where I almost just flared up and got fucking angry. So, it was, this man came along. He was like telling me like, oh yeah, come work for me. I'll, pay you lots of money. I got like a great building for you to live in. You can come live there. And anyhow, so I went along with this. The money he ended up paying me was, like minimum wage, which was like $7.50 an hour. And it was like, and even to get him to pay me, like, I had to like sort of hunt him down and, remind him and nag him about it. And so it was like more work to like even get the paycheck than, it's like, I don't want to do more. I don't want to like have to work to get paid for the work that I've already done. So anyhow, kind of, quickly lost interest in my dealings with him. But, looking back at it, what it provided me was, even though it was like more grief and more suffering, it, compared to like some of the grief that I was going through before, this person came along and added more grief to me. It sort of displaced some of, the things that I was going through and that were on my mind. And it sort of was like a pattern interrupter for, some of the things that I was dealing with. And so, in a way, I think that's kind of like what we do sometimes in life when new opportunities come along. Even though some part of us like knows that this is a bill of goods, like we decide to go along with it anyway because, like the pattern interrupt of the experience is going to, it's going to like make whatever pain we're going through in our lives, it's gonna like sort of take our focus away off of that. And then, now we got new pain to worry about, possibly worse. But so it's interesting, like what we do as human beings to sort of get away from our own feelings, Sometimes, we make ourselves suffer more so that we can get away from this, the place that we're suffering at right now, because we can't imagine it being worse. And yet, sometimes nature has some marvelous surprises in store for us on what our nervous system is able to produce, and the kind of horror that we could experience. And so so sometimes to run away from our pain, we create other pain. Sometimes it's worse, sometimes it's more mild, but it does have it is effective at like redirecting our focus. So And maybe sometimes that's sort of what we need to like steer ourselves in different directions, because if we are sort of stuck in depression, you know, sometimes we just sort of have to have an adventure, even if it's like an adventure that's filled with a bunch of like misfortune and you know, crap that we would rather not, you know, experience. But you know, it still helps us to get out of a situation, and then we come away with more wisdom perhaps. And I think, you know, that's sort of like perhaps the blessing and the curse of being young and naive. You know, we get to, when we're young, we're more mobile and we're more likely to try things because we're naive, and that does have the effect of like moving us out of stuck places more quickly than, you know, like when we get old and cynical, you know, we're less likely to try out new things because we're sort of like weary to the ways of the world. But you know, sometimes, you know, maybe that is sort of like what we need to do, is just to shake things up. And, you know, maybe we know it's not going to be great, but it'll be something, you know, that gets us out, you know, gets us up and out of where we need to get out of. And, you know, gets us to try on something that isn't, you know, a repeated pattern of, you know, misery and depression. So anyway, and you know, like no direction that we go into, you know, other people do try to like hook us into things and make us stick along sometimes when we become like a source for them. But you know, there's no like burden on us to like follow through with people who are, you know, abusive to us. And you know, we don't have to like hate them, and we don't have to listen to them, you know, and we don't have to like believe, you know, their tears so much when they try to like manipulate us through guilt and shame. So, you know, when we walk away from them. But anyhow, yeah, just some interesting thoughts. I'll leave it here. Have a good one.